Alrighty. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans to add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I lived to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. We thank God for the Metu Neter, oracle, scriptures, and writings that came thousands of years on the continent of Africa before any organized religion. We thank God for Moses in the Torah, Jesus in the Gospel, and Muhammad with the Quran. I greet everyone in words of peace. To my Christian family, praise the Lord. To my Muslim family, assalamu alaikum. To my Hebrew Israelite family, shalom. To my black conscious family, hotep. And to my people in the streets, what's good with you? It all means peace. So again, this is Brother Shareef with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Shareef Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. Before we get into our talk tonight, just letting everyone know the Hour of Power and the Black Love Movement via Alafia's teaching class. We officially have our boys and girls group at Vonnie Grimes Gym every Saturday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. That's at Vonnie Grimes Gym between the hours of 11 and 1. Come in at the rear, but I think they have the front door open now where you can come in the front, but more parking is in the back. If there's any other community announcements, inboxes, send us a message and we'll be glad to share it. We are about the community. We're not in competition with anyone. So anyone who is lifting the mind, body, and soul of our youth, we want to collaborate and network with you so we can do just that, lift the mind, body, and soul of our youth. For those who were expecting to see our good brother, Brother Diaz Woodard, that interview will be rescheduled. A lot of people was anticipating our epic interview with him, but that interview will be rescheduled. And like I posted on Facebook earlier, I'm just asking that people pray for our brother and continue to support him, and don't really question him why he wasn't able to make it. Just support him. But when he is ready, the brother gave me his word this morning that he will reschedule with us and come on Hour of Power and share the great things that he's doing in the community. So definitely looking forward to having our brother on when he is ready. And Brother Diaz, we love you. We appreciate what you're doing for the community, and we wouldn't be able to have the space that we do, for the youth, if it wasn't for him making sure and opening the doors for us. So we definitely appreciate his works. So tonight, I want to go into a topic and a subject matter that many people probably aren't familiar with or haven't heard of. It's called the ACE Study and Survey. The ACE Study and Survey. As we know, especially those of us here in the black community, when America has a cold, we have the flu. But this study and survey that I'm going to reveal to you or share with you, pretty much anyone that's grown up in America can relate to. But it's really kind of shocking and eye-opening to us. So if you never listened to your brother before, you definitely want to get some notepad and paper out and jot this down and see about how this information is related to what's going on in your life now, and especially if you have youth under the age of 18. It's real eye-opening and it's nothing to play with. So again, it's called the ACE Study and Survey. It's a study that came out in the mental health and medical field over 30 years ago. And they used it back at that time, but because some of the questions were so probing and some of the information was so personal, the study kind of faded out of the mental health and medical profession and field, and it just kind of faded away. But because of the persistent family problems that's going on in American life, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, no matter what your background, now this study has resurfaced and they're using it, so to speak, to try to prevent mental health problems, substance abuse problems for youth under 18. And I'll connect that number 18, why that's so significant. So again, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And with me being a mentor, a counselor, and a therapist, I come across this information, and I came across this study, which I never heard of. I went to a seminar when I was a counselor in North Carolina. When I was a counselor in North Carolina, I had a caseload of 100 students, 50 at 2 different schools, which there was really no way I could see all those students, but that's another topic. But that was the caseload I had, 50 students at 2 different schools. So we always were constantly have to go to trainings and seminars to sharpen our skills and to update, different information so we could better serve our clients. And again, I've shared this information before. 95, if not 98% of the clients I had were black, and probably the other 2-3% was Latino. So a lot of the training I got was tailored so according to the demographic population that I was serving. So one time I went, I believe, to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for a training, and a lot of those trainings were very boring. And so I went to this training, and they was like, well, we're going to give you a training on the ACE study and survey. I never even heard of it before, even with my long experience being in mental health and counseling and working with youth. I said, oh gosh, here we go again, one of these boring seminars. But once they started going into what this study stood for and how relevant it is to the problems that are going on in inner city America and America abroad, they had my attention the whole time. So again, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. I'll give you my definition, their definition, and how it's relevant to what's going on. And I want you to relate this to what's going on with our youth, not just here in York, PA, but abroad. And it's really a self-reflection, because when I shared this survey, I've shared it with family members and I've shared it with some friends that were willing to listen to it. And I kid you not, once I went through it, because it's 2 parts, it's a study, but I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of mental health jargon, so to speak, but it's a study and it's a survey. When I went through it with some family members and friends, some of them literally started crying. And the ones that didn't cry, just by my observance, they were fighting back tears, even the men. That's how shocking this is. So I'm not here to shake anyone's foundation, but just to wake us up so we can prevent having, just like it says, adverse, which is negative childhood experiences. So here's the definition. And again, the call-in number is 717-846-5067. 717-846-5067. The definition of the ACE study and survey is adverse childhood experiences, which that's what the acronym stands for, ACE, are stressful or traumatic events, including abuse and neglect. They may also include household dysfunction, such as witnessing domestic violence or growing up with family members who have substance abuse disorders. ACE are strongly related to the development and prevalence of a wide range of health problems throughout a person's lifespan, including associated with substance misuse. So I'm going to give their definition one more time. ACE, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, are stressful or traumatic events. Many of us have experienced a stressful or traumatic event, whether we've been seeing it all the time, youth getting murdered, shot, and it isn't just the victim, it's the perpetrator, so to speak, in their family. They're traumatized because now their loved one will be incarcerated and possibly lose their life to the prison system. Neglect and abuse. We hear all the time about youth being neglected and abused. They also may include household dysfunction, such as witnessing domestic violence. The Hour of Power and the Black Love Movement just recognized and honored October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I've given statistics and talks about domestic violence and the traumatic effects of that. You don't have to be a rocket science to know the traumatic effect of domestic violence with any woman. More so, in the statistics show that black women are far more affected by domestic violence than any other ethnic group. That isn't me on some black power trip. That's the statistics that America provides, that black women are far more affected from domestic violence than any other woman of any other ethnic group. Family members who have substance abuse disorders. We know if someone is under the influence of substances, they're not thinking straight, and then that's going to spill over in the family. Things start getting missing. They're missing work, missing school, and the substance takes over their life and becomes priority. The ACE is strongly related to the development and prevalence of a wide range of health problems throughout a person's lifespan, including associated with substance misuse. So these factors, they are saying these factors that I'm getting ready to run down, if these factors aren't addressed through counseling, therapy, or some kind of medical intervention, or all of them together, if these issues that I'm going to run down aren't addressed by a youth, because remember, it's adverse childhood experiences, they say that this youth, if these aren't addressed by the time they're 18, they can be subject to chronic health problems like diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, heart problems, substance abuse issues, and mental health issues. And listen to this, it can even take 20 years off their life. If these issues that I'm getting ready to run down aren't addressed by the time a youth is 18, they can be subject to chronic disease, mental health issues, substance abuse, and can take 20 years off their life. Now, I have lost siblings just recently this year. Within the past few years, I have lost siblings. If I could bring them back to life and say, have you been exposed to any of these things, and do you think this led to your premature death? I bet you they would bear witness to it. And look at, if you have family members and friends and they have had a premature death, you tell me with the information I'm about to tell you if this is not true. So when I went to this training, it was mind blowing. It was shocking. So the ACE risk factors are physical abuse, being physically beaten, sexual abuse. I've done plenty talks on sexual abuse within the black community, especially how it's taboo, how it's the deep, dark secret in the black community. No one wants to talk about it, but the Hour of Power and the Black Love Movement, we have spoken heavily, and we're going to continue to speak heavily against sexual abuse in our community. Emotional abuse. Have you been emotionally abused? Physical neglect. Do you have things that you need on a regular basis to survive? Emotional neglect. Have you been emotionally neglected? intimate partner violence, which essentially means domestic violence. Did you witness your mother being treated violently, which is still connected to domestic violence, but it's a different bullet point. Substance misuse within the household. Watching family members abuse alcohol or drugs. Household mental illness. Another taboo issue in the black community. We even talked about the barriers of why black people in America don't get mental health treatment. We've talked about the mistrust with the mental health field because of things that have happened in America in the past. So those are some barriers, cultural barriers, religious issues. Sometimes I gave the statistic that 85% of black people claim some kind of religion. So within that, sometimes when they have mental health issues, whoever their spiritual leader is sometimes will tell them, well, Jesus will fix it or Muhammad will fix it. But the mental health issues continue to persist. And I'm not telling anyone not to follow their religious background, but when you have, or their religious following, but when you have mental health issues, it still is connected to what your own book tells you is prayer without works is dead. You have to put some work with that prayer. But sometimes spiritual leaders, and I don't know why they do this, will just tell people just pray about it. But the problem continues to persist. Parental separation or divorce and incarcerated household member. So we know the detrimental effects of divorce. That's across any ethnic or religious lines. If you have grow up in a single family home, not that a single mother or father can't run a family. I know of plenty of people who have just grew up with a mother or father, and they are wonderful human beings and productive human beings. But we know when a breakup happens, a lot of times the most person damaged by that is the children. I've seen it and witnessed it and experienced it myself. When my mother and father separated when I was 16, it was absolutely devastating to me. I never forget it. I saw the dysfunction, I saw the dysfunction with my mother and father, but I hoped that things would get better. And I was in the bathroom one day getting ready for school, and my dad came up behind me and he gave me a little piece of paper. He said, call me at this number if you need me. I said, well, where are you going? He said, I'm going to stay with your uncle. I've had enough. And I thought I was just going to pass out or something. I was just used to seeing my mom and dad. And while I'm on that note, I don't know if the sister is watching. I know she watches some of my videos. Hopefully she'll catch it on replay. But I want to give a special shout out to Miss Wanda Dorm. Miss Wanda Dorm was my guidance counselor at York High. She was actually my first introduction to York High because all my years in school, I went to Catholic school, and I was kind of like a rebel at Catholic school, so they found a crafty way to get me out of there. But I thought by going to summer school, I would be able to pass to the next grade at York Catholic. But the problem was one of the courses that I flunked was religion class. Well, in public school, of course, they don't have a substitute or a credit for a religion class because it's a public school. So Miss Dorm informed me that I had one choice, basically. Two choices. Said you could either repeat the 10th grade at York Catholic, or you could take some summer school classes here, but you won't be able to go back to York Catholic because we don't have a class to replace religion class. And that was a shock to me because I want all my years there. So I had to take plan B, which was go to York High, which ended up being the best thing for me. But once I got there, I started experiencing some of these ACE factors, the dysfunction in my home, and she made sure that I was okay, to say the least. She got me the help and the resources I needed, and I don't know if I would have been able to make it through school if it wasn't for Miss Dorm. She took a lot of time with me. I was angry. I was out of control, so to speak. Not really a behavior problem, but I was so hurt by the things that I was witnessing, these adverse childhood experiences, that I just wasn't performing the way that I should. And she took a lot of time to make sure that I was okay. So salute to you, Miss Dorm, for helping me get along and get through school. So hopefully she sees this message, and if anyone is connected to Ms. Dorm, pass that message along. So we always got to pay respects to those who helped us get through. But anyway, I'm gonna run down these risk factors again. They are saying with these risk factors, if they're not addressed by the time you're 18, you can be subject to health problems like chronic health problems, diabetes, hypertension, cancer, heart problems, circulation problems, anything health related, mental health problems. If these issues aren't addressed by the time you're 18, and it can even take 20 years off your life. Almost anyone, family or friends that I know of who have died a premature death, if I was to ask them or just know of their life, they have been subject to this. That's how valid this study is. Again, physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, intimate partner violence, mother treated violently, substance misuse within the household, household mental illness, parental separation or divorce, and incarcerated household member. So those are the risk factors with the ACE study that need to be addressed according to this study by the time you're 18. Some of the statistics that they give with that, or some of the information, it says efforts to prevent underage drinking may also affect unless ACEs are addressed, and contributing factors. Underage drinking prevention programs may not work as intended unless they help youth organize, cope with stressors of abuse, household dysfunction, and other adverse experiences. High risk of mental health and substance abuse disorders for adults older than 50. ACEs, which is those risk factors such as physical, sexual, and psychological abuse with parents with substance abuse, are associated with higher risk of developing a substance abuse disorder. Prescription drug misuse are connected to the ACE study and survey. Behavioral problems. Look at the behavioral problems that we have in school now. I work as a therapist and a counselor in the school system, and the things that I see and the disparity or the difference that I see in the environment in schools is shocking and very disturbing. When I go to almost any school in York County to do counseling and therapy. Just today, I was in way out in Dallastown. I go into school. I just have to be honest. It's orderly. The children aren't running around in the lunchroom. I go into the different classrooms, so it's not an act. They're sitting there learning. But then when I go into the city, I go into the lunchroom. It's like a zoo. You got hall monitors everywhere. And I hope I'm not hurting anyone's feeling, but it's just my observation, and it's very disturbing for me to see such a variance in behavior and the atmosphere. And I know it's connected to what's going on at home. And People are welcome to call in. If you have any questions or comments, 717-846-5067. I know this is some disturbing and uncomfortable information, but if we take a look at what's going on in our communities, I think it's very hard to dispute. ACE behavioral problems, suicide attempts, which used to be taboo in the black community. ACEs in any category increase the risk of attempted suicide 2 to 5-fold throughout a person's lifespan. So they're saying that those who experience these risk factors, which again, emotional abuse and neglect, physical abuse and neglect, sexual abuse, household mental illness, is increasing the risk for suicide attempts. Lifetime depressive episodes. Exposure to ACEs may increase the risk of experiencing depressive disorders within an adult, even decades after that 18 mark, which they say if you don't get these issues addressed by the time they're 18, you can be subject to mental health issues and chronic health issues. Sleep disturbances. How can you function, especially as a youth, if you aren't sleeping well? People with a history of ACEs, which are those risk factors again, have a higher likelihood of experiencing self-reported sleep disorders. So again, it's going back to those risk factors that I talked about. High risk sexual behaviors. Women with ACEs have reported risky sexual behaviors, including early intercourse, having 30 or more sexual partners, and perceiving themselves to be at risk for HIV and AIDS. So they're saying that if you've been exposed to, and this isn't no rocket science, if you've been sexually abused, seen your mother being mistreated, only having one parent household, a parent may be working hard, 2 jobs, and there's no supervision there, that easily opens up the door for youth to get into having early sexual experiences. And some of this is just bad parenting. Also, I have given talks and talked about parents, what they're exposing their youth to, and especially our girls, sexualizing our girls and letting them do these provocative dances. I've actually been in homes where mothers are sitting there laughing and almost coaching their girls to be sexually provocative. I don't get it. Girls and our boys need to have a work experience, but not sexual experience, in my humble opinion. I'm going to say it again. Our girls need to have work experience, but not sexual experience. And letting them have boyfriends and girlfriends at 10, 11 years old and thinking it's cute, I believe that's setting them up for a lifelong of hardship, so to speak, because they're having experience that they don't need. So if a girl is having boyfriends at 12 and 13 years old and they're not mature enough to be in that kind of relationship, before she know it, before she's 16, 17 years old, she may have been in several relationships with men. I mean, what is that teaching her? What is that teaching him? Is it teaching our boys to just use women as trophies and just go through as many as they can? Because sexual experiences, again, with my experience as being a counselor and a therapist, it resonates different between boys and girls. Women get more emotionally attached with a sexual experience than what a male does, because for the most part, men are entering into the women. Y'all aren't entering into us. So it's more of an attachment with a woman than it is with a man. A man can have a sexual experience with a female and he can pretty much brush it off. But a female, for the most part, gets more attached to a sexual experience. So, in my humble opinion, we need to hold that off, male and female, as long as possible. So now that is the ACE study. That is the ACE study. Again, and I'm going to run them down one more time. If you are exposed to these risk factors before the age of 18, they are saying, mental health professionals, if these risk factors aren't addressed by the time you're 18, you could be subject to chronic disease, substance abuse, and mental health issues, and can possibly take 20 years off your life. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, intimate partner violence, mother being treated violently, that's verbal and physical, substance misuse within the household, household mental illness, parental separation or divorce, and an incarcerated household or member. Now, they also came out with a ACE survey or questionnaire. And follow me on this. They said with this questionnaire, which it's 10 questions, they said if you score 4 or more on this questionnaire, which I'm going to give you, you are at serious risk to have a lifelong of chronic mental health disease, and again, can take 20 years off your life. This is the questionnaire, and we're going to go through these questions. And again, you can call in if you have any questions, statements. If you disagree with something, call in. The floor is yours. This is the ACE survey. I just gave you the study. This is the ACE survey. Question 1. Then this is our questions for any youth before you're the age of 18. So they're trying to prevent it. Here's the first question. Did a parent or an adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, or act in a way that made you feel afraid that they might physically hurt you? So this is ACE study survey question 1. And again, if you score 4 or more out of these questions, they are saying if you are a youth, you are at grave danger to develop chronic mental health, physical, mental abuse. Chronic mental health issues, substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and could possibly take 20 years off your life. Did a parent, and I'm going to repeat every question twice so we get it. Did a parent or other adult in the household often swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, or act in a way that made you feel afraid that you may be physically hurt? That's ACE question number 1. Number 2, while you were growing up, before you were the age of 18, did a parent or adult in the household often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you or hit you with something that left marks on your body or injure you? ACE question number 2. Again, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, or slap, or throw something at you or hit you so hard with an object that left marks on your body or injure you? Only you can answer these questions. And again, when I read these questions to family members and friends, some of them started crying. While you were growing up before the age of 18, this is number 3. Did an adult or person in your household at least 5 years older than you ever touch you, fondle you in a sexual way, or attempt to actually have oral, anal, or vaginal sex with you? Again, a lot of our households, it isn't just mom, dad, brother, and sister. We got uncles and, aunts, friends of the family coming through, either living with us or frequenting the house, which opens up the door for these things to happen. So this is ACE question survey number 3. Did an adult or person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondle you or touch you in a sexual way or attempted to actually have anal, oral, or vaginal sex with you? That's question number 3. Question number 4. While you were growing up before the age of 18, did you often or very often feel no one in your family ever loved you, thought you were important or special in your family, didn't look out for you, or feel close to each other or support each other? So now they're talking about family dynamics with feelings and emotions. So this is question 4. Did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special in your family, didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? That's ACE question survey number 4. Number 5, while you were growing up, did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, your parents were too drunk or too high to take care of you, or they didn't take you to the doctor as needed? That's ACE question study number 5. And family, I know this is a little rough. I know it's not the most popular thing, but these are relevant issues that not too many people either know about or want to touch. Again, this is the ACE study and survey, and we are on questionnaire question number 5. Feel free to call in for those who are viewing. I'll repeat 5 again. Did you often or very often feel you didn't have enough to eat, you had to wear dirty clothes, no one was there to protect you, your parents were too drunk or too high to take care of you or to take you to the doctor when needed? Just with me and my good brother Lafayette doing work in the community with youth in the community, I witnessed this myself without even crossing the threshold of the door. Children not being protected, just roaming the streets. My good brother in Baltimore, Brother Messiah, who is the general of the Black Wolves youth group for young ladies and men who, with God's help and his help, I want to bring here to York, PA. I asked him, how did he recruit members of the Black Wolves? And he said it was easy. The youth were just roaming the streets. And this is in Baltimore. And anyone that's been to Baltimore knows, how that city is. He said youth just roaming the streets. I said, my God, well, we see the same thing here, because problems persist no matter where they go in the hood in America. It don't matter whether you're in Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, LA. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's just the characters, so to speak, or the faces are different. Our problems are the same. So it can only be one or two things. Either we're destined to fail, or it's a blueprint for us to fail. It's one or two things. How can people who never came across each other's path, don't even know that the other exists, and the problems be exactly the same to the T, no matter where you go? Broken families, the educational system, children highly medicated, substance abuse issues, violence, youth having access to high-powered weapons. It's the same thing no matter where you go. And I know the easy answer to that is, well, it's the family's fault. These youth are out of control. And to a certain extent, we have to take responsibility for our actions. But that still doesn't answer the question of how can the problem persist no matter where you go? How can it be the same with people who are not even connected? And how are the drugs getting there? How are the guns getting in the hands of youth? How? So back to the ACE questionnaire. We're on question 6 now. While you were growing up, before the age of 18, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Which goes back to a risk factor. We know, and I can bear witness to the detrimental effect of separation and divorce. The mother can go on and get herself another man. The father can go on and get himself another woman. But where does that leave the children? And I know I took a turn for the worse, so to speak, when my mother and my father divorced, because originally I stayed with my mother, and that didn't work. And I ended up with my dad, but I was very hurt. I was confused, and it showed up in school. But like I mentioned earlier, God sent me an angel in the form of Miss Wanda Dorm. And if it wasn't for her, like I said, I can't say it enough. I wanted to tell her when we was at the African American Summit. We was at a meeting before the African American Summit that they had back in September, and she was there, but it was a lot going on. But I'm taking this time to thank again Miss Dorm for her intervening and making sure that I stayed on track. I don't know what would have happened to me if that woman wouldn't have took time that she didn't have to make sure that I was okay. Now, the ACE questionnaire, question number 7. While you were growing up, was your mother or stepmother often pushed, grabbed, slapped, had something thrown at her, sometimes often even kicked, bitten, or hit with a fist, or hit something so hard and repeatedly and threatened with a gun or a knife? So that's a loaded question there. So this is question 7. And again, it goes right back to abuse. But what they're saying is, what's the detrimental effect of a male or a female witnessing that kind of violence? Was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, had something thrown at her, sometimes or often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, hit with something hard, even repeatedly, and threatened with a gun or a knife? And we've talked about this before when we've done talks about domestic violence and how to prevent domestic violence. And I've even said, if someone is in a relationship with someone, and if they're in a relationship with someone who isn't in control of their emotions and is very volatile, I've even taken it to the extent of, it's 2 places that you don't want to be within a house. If you get into a volatile argument with a significant other, it's 2 places you don't want to be in the house that you want to remove yourself from: the kitchen and the bedroom. The kitchen and the bedroom. I'm going to say it again. If you get into a volatile argument with a significant other and you're in the house, those are 2 places you don't want to be, especially if you know this person is very volatile. The kitchen, because sharp objects are there, knives, scissors. In the bedroom, because those people who carry or who have firearms, most likely their firearm is in the bedroom. Even if you watch those shows, the First 48 and those other murder shows, most of the time when you see that dead body there, or the blood and the shock and awe from what happened, most of the time you see the blood or the body in the kitchen or the bedroom. Try to remove yourself from that area. Take a walk. Get out of there if you know someone is very volatile. ACE question number 8, winding up, is, do you live with anyone who is a problem drinker or alcoholic and use street drugs? So again, these are 10 questions, and they're saying if you mark 4 or higher, you are in grave danger if you're 18 to develop chronic mental health, substance abuse issues, and it can even take 20 years off your life. Question number, I'll repeat 8 again. Do you live with anyone who's a problem drinker or alcoholic or use street drugs? Question number 9. Was a household member depressed, mentally ill, or did the household member attempt suicide? Was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did the household member attempt suicide? Again, suicide used to be taboo in the black community, but now it's through the roof. And suicide has always been a plague in American society. We had Robin Williams, who is Caucasian. He was a comedian. And I just think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Robin Williams, he used to be the, I don't know if y'all remember the show Mork and Mindy. He was the star of that show, a world-renowned comedian. His job was to take our mind away from, the stress of life and family and put a smile on our face. But yet he was sad on the inside and he committed suicide. The man who had the show on CNN, Anthony Bergden, I believe his name was, just this year, he committed suicide. It's someone else that was famous that committed suicide. Our good brother Donny Hathaway, he supposedly committed suicide. Phyllis Hyman, she used to, a famous R&B singer back in the 80s. All throughout her song, she was talking about how sad she was. She had one song called Living Alone. She committed suicide. Vesta Williams, who they say was like the reincarnate of Shaka Khan, she committed suicide a couple years ago. Hardly no one talking about it. So, and there's been others who has committed suicide, and then depression and mental illness in any American household is so persistent and prevalent. We could be here all day. They say 1 out of every 5 people has a mental illness or taking some kind of medication for mental illness, and it's probably higher than that. Was a household member depressed or mentally ill, and did they attempt suicide? And ACE questionnaire number 10, and the last one is, while growing up, did a household member go to prison? Did a household member go to prison? So those are the 10 questions. And they said again, if you scored 4, so out of those 10 questions, if you checked yes to 4 or more, and if you are 18, you are at high risk for chronic substance abuse, mental health, or chronic health problems such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, heart problems, on and on and on. So I know that was a little rough, but that is the ACE study and survey. And some of this is by design. I did a talk the other night about this book, since the last question was a household member went to prison. And I talked about how we need to try to change the narrative amongst each other, especially with black men, with the high incarceration rate of black men. We need to try to teach ourselves and our youth our history, and not the only perception or narrative they have of each other is black men going to jail, always getting in trouble. But some of this is by design, and I shared a book. It's a children's book. I'm not making this up. It's right here. It's called The Night My Dad Went to Jail. And you can see it's animals on there, and you can see the color of the animals on there. But what's striking is, look at it, and it says what to expect when someone you love goes to jail. Expect means, it's a basic word. Expect means something that is going to happen. Something is going to happen. That's what it could. Well, that's not our reality. Not no more. Not while the hour of power is on the scene. We expect greatness from our men. So what to expect? No, we don't expect that. And the characters in this book, because it's children, it's a children's book, which is very shocking. I don't see how this can be of any benefit to a youth, especially with the negative perceptions with jail. These are 3 children there, even though they're animals. So are they attributing black children to animals? So it's 3 children there. The names of the children is TJ, Jasmine, and Sketchy. TJ, Jasmine, and Sketchy. What other ethnic group do you know with the nicknames or names of TJ, Jasmine, and Sketchy? It's just a question. I don't know of any other ethnic group other than us with those names. So I don't know where this author was going with this. I shared it with some people in the school system in North Carolina because this came out in 2015 and they were shocked by it. And they said if they ever see that book come across any educational environment where they're at, they will highly protest it. So, and again, it's called The Night My Dad Went to Jail. Well, that's not our expectation. Not at all. That's not an expectation. And that's not going to be our reality as long as we have anything to do with it. But to me, it's psychological warfare and lowering the bar of expectation, which we're trying to higher the bar of expectation. We don't expect any of our men to go to jail. We know it happens, but we want to avoid that as much as possible because evidenced by this ACE study and survey. We don't need that happening. We need our brothers with their family. And the goal of the Hour of Power is to try to rebuild the black family. We can't do it ourselves, but when we are pouring into these youth, that's exactly what we are doing, is trying to rebuild the black family. Rebuild the black family and avoid them, try to have them not experience these adverse childhood experiences that we talked about. We're just getting started, but we want to teach them conflict resolution skills, right? Not to resort to violence if they have a disagreement with their brother or sister. We want to teach them their history so they have knowledge of self and so they have confidence in themselves. Now, the challenge with this is getting their parents or their caretakers to buy into this, but eventually we will get around to that. But if you would have saw how engaged the youth were just last week with our first exercise with them, it was something to give us hope. Brother Alafia, Sister Alicia, and Sister Akeisha was there. Brother Keon was there. And they will tell you that the youth were engaged when we had the African symbol there and they painted it red, black, and green, which, the red for the blood, the black for, us, being black throughout the diaspora, and the green being our land. We gave them that concept and they were very engaged with that concept and with that exercise. We didn't hardly have to correct any of the children, which debunks this whole ADHD thing. They were engaged and they were paying attention. Why? Because we gave them something that they can relate to. So our children want to learn. It's just they have to be connected, and they felt safe. They felt safe. And that is some of what they say are the risk factors with the ACE study and survey. Did you feel safe? And again, those 10 questions, if you score 4 or more on those 10 questions, they say you are at risk. And I'm going to run through them real quick, those 10 questions, but I'm not going to explain them. And it said if you score 4 or more, you are at risk before the age of 18. Did a parent swear at you or insult you? That's number 1. Did a parent or adult in the household push or grab you? Number 2. Number 3, was someone in the household sexually trying to assault you or get you to engage in inappropriate sexual activity? That's number 3. Number 4, did you feel loved? Did you feel protected? Did people in your household protect and support each other? Number 5, were you fed? Did you have to wear dirty clothes? Were people in your household who were responsible for you too drunk or too high to take care of you, or did they take you to the doctor? Number 6, did you experience parents separated or divorced? Number 7, was a stepmother or mother physically abused in your presence, or were they threatened with a knife? Number 8, Did you grow up with someone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Number 9, was someone in your household depressed, mentally ill, or attempt suicide? And number 10, was someone in your household incarcerated? Those were the 10 ACE questions. And if you scored 4 or higher, they said a youth is at serious risk to develop chronic mental health, substance abuse, or health issues. So that's the ACE study and survey. All you got to do is Google if you want to verify anything I said, or you want to go through it yourself. All you got to do is Google ACE, ACE, capital ACE study or survey, and it'll come right up. Scholarly articles and evidence from this. And like I said, I thought it was just another study that was going to bore me. But once that lady went through the risk factors, then the questionnaire, I mean, it was shocking. I mean, I almost teared up looking at it because I've been through a lot of this. Like I said, luckily, with the grace of God, God sent people to intervene in my affairs to help me out, to get me on track. I've interviewed some of them. I've had Sister Shahida on, and her husband, who I call Abba, Brother Salim. They have been very instrumental in my life. I had Miss Harris on. I darn near lived with that woman and her family. They were very instrumental in my life. Miss Michaels, who lived right down the street from me. I grew up with her grandson and granddaughter, Trina Michaels and De'Eric Michaels. They were very instrumental in my life. The Samuels on the other end of Maple Street. I mean, I could go on and on. Mr. Kirkland, Mr. Jeff Kirkland, would go to his house and get knowledge from him. So many people, poured into me as a youth, despite all the things that I experienced. And I can't thank God enough for, him putting those people in my life, because I just don't know where I would be. But some of our youth just don't have, that, kind of community life, which we need to get back to. Hence is why our communities are in the condition that it's in, because we don't have that community life to wrap our arms around the youth. And like the brother said with the Black Wolf, some of our youth are literally roaming the streets and fending for themselves as if they are in some third world country or something. This is sad. It has to stop, and we have to do what we need to do to get a hold of our youth. So thank you for listening. I know this was a little rough topic. I know some of us were anticipating our brother, but again, we're going to wait for our brother to be ready and bring Brother Diaz back on. We have the youth group on Saturday at Vonnie Grimes Gym. So if you have any nieces or nephews, whoever that need some guidance, bring them on by 11 to 1. I won't be able to make it this Saturday, but God willing, we'll have plenty support there. That's why if everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot. So that's every Saturday at Vonnie Grimes Gym from 11 to 1. Tune in next week. I will let you know in a couple days who our next guest will be. Thank you for your patience. I'll leave you in peace as I came. Assalamu alaikum.